Netflix's Dahmer, starring Evan Peters, has taken the world by storm and has quickly become the streaming giant's 9th most watched English language show. The popularity of the show has introduced many to the horrors of Jeffrey Dahmer, the notorious killer who murdered and dismembered 17 men from 1978 to 1991. Jeffrey Dahmer has regrettably become a household name, with many movies and shows having been made in his name. It's actually incredibly troubling how a serial killer like Dahmer has received mainstream recognition because of shows and movies like My Friend Dahmer and Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer Story. I recently saw a few ads on Facebook promoting Dahmer documentaries and movies as if he was a character from the Avengers, which in my honest opinion is disgusting. Dahmer was a monster who ruined and destroyed countless lives. His actions are not to be praised or glorified, but taken in their proper context and understood. This was an evil man who committed serious atrocities. With that in mind, this list has been put together to account for all of the fictional portrayals of the character of Jeffrey Dahmer. This means original stories or retellings with actors portraying Dahmer. No documentaries, movies, or shows that use real-life footage of Dahmer will be included on this list. That means no conversations with the killer or fresh meat Jeffrey Dahmer. This list is purely recounting the fictional portrayals of the character by actors. So the first movie based on the life of Jeffrey Dahmer was released in 1993, only 2 years after he was arrested in 1991 and 1 year before he himself was murdered in prison. The film cast Carl Crew as the infamous cannibal and was directed by David R. Bowen. It was a biographical crime drama and was actually made in secret, as many involved with its development were incredibly worried about the backlash the film may receive. The film is a first-hand account of Dahmer's actions and lifestyle as a serial killer and portrayed his murders as well as his actions after. The film was also intended for a theatrical cut, but was ultimately released straight to video. And please tell me that this poster wasn't a direct ripoff of the poster of the Tom Cruise movie The Firm, released that same year. The movie was a true product of its time, with every aspect of it screaming 90s, from acting to directing to sound design and even cinematography. The next movie was released almost a decade later in 2002. The film titled Dahmer was a horror thriller film written and directed by David Jacobson. The film cast Renner as the despicable killer. The film is a fictionalized and fractured biopic that takes place both in the present and the past. The primary storyline focuses on Dahmer meeting a potential victim and facing an emotional crisis as he decides whether or not to continue with his plans of murder. The flashbacks portray his first victims and his strained relationship with his father and his battle with alcoholism. The film faced a tricky production as no producers wanted to collaborate on the film due to its explicit content. Finding an actor was also a struggle as no one wanted to portray the serial killer. Once Renner was cast and filming began, the film was completed in 18 days. The film received favorable reviews despite its limited theatrical release. 2006 saw the release of Raising Jeffrey Dahmer. The film recounts the events leading up to Dahmer's murderous turn and his relationship with his family, especially his father Lionel, and is set during the trial of 1991. The film cast 2 actors to portray Jeffrey, Luke Adams as a young Dahmer and Rusty Sneary as the adult Dahmer. The film was released during the Kansas City Filmmakers Jubilee in 2006 and was not released in mainstream theaters. Despite the film's unique perspective and taking much inspiration from the novel A Father's Story by Lionel Dahmer, the film received relatively low ratings. 2010 saw the release of one of the most ridiculous Dahmer films ever released, Dahmer vs. Gacy. This film was a comedy horror and Ford Austin was cast as Dahmer. Ford would also go on to direct the movie. The film follows the ludicrous plot of the US government trying to create the ultimate killer by using DNA from infamous killers Jeffrey Dahmer and John Wayne Gacy. The killers, however, escape and go on a killing spree across America before going head-to-head in a final bloody battle. The film is definitely one of the weirdest and most bizarre adaptations of the character of Dahmer, but many seem to enjoy it as it was reviewed favorably, and the film won the Audience Award at the 2010 Barebones International Film Festival. 2012's The Jeffrey Dahmer Files is an experimental documentary film that retells the infamous story of the serial killer and uses a mixture of archival footage and fictionalized reenactment sequences that cast Andrew Swant in the role. I almost didn't include this on the list, but the inclusion of the fictional Andrew Swant scenes led me to include it. The film focuses on those surrounding Dahmer during his secret killing spree and brought the stories of the people around him to the forefront. The experimental documentary has received rather favorable reviews and it won several awards. 2012 saw the release of the first of 2 Dahmer short films, the second released in 2017. The films were titled Jeff, followed by Jeff Felt. Little is recorded online about the 2 short films other than its cast. 2012's cast Marcus Reinhardt as Dahmer, and 2017's cast Jack Ritter. 2017 also saw the release of one of the most popular portrayals of Dahmer. My Friend Dahmer was a biographical, psychological drama that cast Ross Lynch as the teenage Jeffrey Dahmer struggling through high school life. The film was actually based on a graphic novel of the same name written by someone that went to school with Dahmer. The film looked at his disturbed childhood, unhealthy obsessions, and his addiction to alcohol. The film follows Dahmer before his first murder and how his motives and desires grow and change as he develops throughout the film. The film was actually filmed in Dahmer's real-life childhood home, and many of the cast and crew reported unusual events taking place during filming at the location. The film received high praise when it was released, with a specific emphasis placed towards Ross Lynch's performance. 2021's Dumb and Dahmer is by far one of the hardest movies to get any concrete information on. Made by a B-list movie maker Bill Zabub, the film follows an individual named Jeff Dahmer who is not in any way related to the real-life killer, but has all the same urges and struggles. This slapstick comedy story sees Jeffrey Dahmer trying to find a meaningful relationship. Doing research on this film left me with more questions than answers. The film is ultimately nothing more than a B-list flick with some of the weirdest marketing I have ever seen. I went down a massive rabbit hole pursuing more information only to learn more about director Bill Zabub, who has made several movies of this kind, each more bizarre than the last. Films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Grammar Nazi are just a few in his long line of weird movies with an apparent theme of objectifying women. 2022 saw the release of Dahmer, Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer Story, which is responsible for the recent increase in interest of the serial cannibal. This Netflix original cast Evan Peters as Dahmer for the majority of the runtime, as well as Nick A. Fisher as a younger Dahmer during flashbacks. The series explored Dahmer's childhood, relationships with his family, as well as the short and long-term effects that his actions had on the families of his victims. The show ran for 10 episodes and covered the span of Dahmer's life from childhood to death. The goal of the show was never to show Dahmer as a sympathetic character, but have the audience watch from the outside looking in. The show received rave reviews and many have considered it the best fictional recalling of the events of Dahmer's life. And that, from my understanding, is the complete list of every fictional portrayal of Jeffrey Dahmer. Again, this list is not aimed to glorify or promote the actions of the real-life murderer, but simply to highlight the portrayals of the actors throughout the years. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and do not be afraid to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. I have made similar videos breaking down the history and evolution of many fictional characters, and you can see a few of them on screen now. Thank you so much for watching.